Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show. Welcome back, everybody. Planet 76. My name's Troy. Michael's here with me as always. Sixers made some headlines today on Memorial Day, Monday, the 29th, as they hire Nick Nurse to be the next coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, something we talked about a lot on episode 97 last week, and now episode 98, we're talking about that very much becoming a reality. The coach that we wanted is the coach that we got. We're going to talk about that. Today, we're going to talk about Nick's history in the league, where he's been, what he's done, what he's accomplished, what he brings to the table schematically, that kind of fun stuff, and what this means for the Sixers currently as their roster as is right now, and then the impact that could have on the latest on James Harden. So again, this is Planet 76, our 98th episode. Michael, why don't we just jump right in with that? So your initial reaction, you might have some insider information, because a couple days ago on Trust the Love, you posted a pretty confident remark that, it looks like this is going to happen. Nick Nurse is likely to be the next guy. It's going to happen in a couple days. Like, that was the words you used, and then a couple days later it happened. So what led you to believe that? And again, how are you feeling?
Well, first off, just getting the obvious out of the way, I'm very thrilled with this pickup for the Sixers, as I'm sure not most fans are, because there was a lot of kickback against Nick Nurse, against the Sixers, signing Nick Nurse, going after Nick Nurse. But I think I would like to think or guess that majority of Sixers fans are okay/happy with this signing. I know you are. I'm assuming you are.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think you are.
Yeah,
you are. I am very thrilled. So that's the obvious out of the way. I was shocked earlier. Like, when I made that post yesterday about Nick Nurse being signed in the next week or so, that was just a pure guess. That was just pure speculation. Because the way I saw it was, okay, so the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin, right?
Right.
So the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin Saturday, Friday maybe?
Yep, one of those, yeah.
They were eliminated before the Sixers. So I was thinking, okay, so they were eliminated before the Sixers. They announced their head coach before the Sixers. The Sixers are going to have to announce their head coach at least in the next few days, if not the next week. Because that's I don't even have a reason. I just guessed. It just made sense because of the way that the eliminations happened. It just made the most sense to me. And I was... And it had to have happened before the draft, because the draft is not... It's not soon, but it's coming up rather quickly. And it had to have happened before the draft anyway. So I just took a shot in the dark, and I was right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to... I mean, I wasn't 100% right. It was my guessing time range was a little too long. Like I said, a week, and it was only 2 days. But
hey, you were just on it. You were just on it.
Yeah.
You're being a little cautious, and you had it, and
yeah.
So obviously a lot of the conversation, or a lot of the the piece of conversation that I keep finding on Twitter and stuff, is that the Sixers are going from a doctor to a nurse. They're going from a doc to a nurse. When when the doc doesn't get where you want, go grab the nurse. Yeah. So Nick Nurse, I'm just going to run through a few notes on him that, a lot of which we're aware of and a lot of which we're not. I did some Nick Nurse research today, just to get a feel for, again, who the Sixers are bringing in, because all I've really known is just the last couple years in Toronto and some of the success he's had and some of the difficulty he's had there as well. So 55 years old. Nurse and Daryl Morey go way back. when Nick Nurse was the coach of the G League affiliate for the Rockets several years ago. Nurse led that G League team to a championship in 2013. I did not know that, and that earned him an assistant coaching job in Toronto. And so he's been in Toronto for 2013, about 10 years now. I read a couple other quotes specifically on this season. Nurse, I saw this somewhere. Nurse oversaw an aggressive style of defense, helping them become the first team to record the most steals while allowing the fewest since that stat was initially tracked in 1973-74. The Raptors led the league in points per game off turnovers, and they allowed the fewest, so another bright spot there. Again, joined the Raptors staff in 2013-14, became a head coach in 2018-19. We know what the Raptors did that year with Kawhi Leonard winning the NBA championship. Nick Nurse was the guy, the rookie head coach to be able to do that and beat Golden State in 6. 2019-20, though, in the COVID season, Nick Nurse was the coach of the year in the NBA. Despite losing Kawhi to free agency, I knew they were good. I didn't quite realize they went 53-19 that year post Kawhi. As a 2 seed in the East, they lost in the Eastern Conference semis. And then 2020-21, they went 27-45. Real, obviously a rebuilding year for them. And then the last 2 years, 48-34, they lost in the first round to the Sixers. And then this season, 41-41, 500, and lost to the Bulls in the play-in. Couple other things with Nurse. He's no debate the greatest coach in Raptors history. He has the second most wins all time and has the highest win percentage and their first NBA championship. So what sticks out to you in particular, whether it's one of those things or just something you know about Nick Nurse that just sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the better coaches in the league today, I think one coach that automatically comes to your mind is Nick Nurse, because you've seen what he's done, you've seen the way he coaches, you've seen the things he implements on his teams, and you realize, hey, this guy really knows how to coach in the modern NBA, and he's one of the few, in my opinion, who really understand the game when it comes to creating a successful, in his case, defense, because he's a very good defensive coach. I think you look at the Kawhi Raptors is pretty easy to look at. He helped a lot, and I don't want to give the coaches all the credit all the time, but he did help a lot with that team defensively, and just overall the way, and obviously that that 27-45 team isn't the best team, obviously, but just overall helped the Raptors stay competitive, even though they lost Kawhi. They had to kind of rebuild from the ground up in a sense.
Yeah.
He's helped them stay competitive. In the notes here he's really smart basketball mind. He understands the game. He actually wants to coach, and he actually wants to. He's willing to go against the norm of just the basic levels of coaching, like we see with Doc Rivers, like we've seen with Mike Budenholzer, guys who don't really make adjustments. That's another reason why I didn't really want Mike Budenholzer. I saw a lot of similarities between him and Glenn, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
He's what I'd call a new age coach. He is someone that you can trust to take your team to the next level when it comes to implementing different things. Again, you have here creative schemes. He's a very creative coach. He's willing to do things that a lot of coaches don't do, willing to take risks in order to obviously enhance the team or enhance certain game-by-game scenarios, things like that. I'm a huge fan, and obviously you give your thoughts too, but I just the Sixers needed a coach.
Right.
I made a post about it today.
I saw
they
that.
Need a coach.
That was good. Yeah,
they need a coach. There have been plenty and too many times over the past 3 years where Glenn just sits aside, and we've talked about this. I hate to beat a dead horse here, where Glenn would just sit aside, let the guys play, let them do their thing, and it ends up not looking so great.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse is the opposite. That's what the Sixers need. I think that's what Joel Embiid needs too. And I think it's going to be really, really beneficial for this team.
Yeah. So to me, there's I think three things that stick out, right off the bat. One, and kind of under the radar, is, because again, 18-19 he won a chip, 19-20 he won Coach of the Year. But the 21-22 season where we played them in the playoffs, they went 48-34. We talked about it right here on this podcast. Like, we weren't looking forward to that matchup.
No.
Despite having a better roster, despite having a better, team, because, again, they did a lot with a little. Again, better roster the Sixers had, and yet 4-5 matchup, 48-34 Raptors come into town, and it's like I'm not super looking forward to that because of the toughness they present.
Not a cakewalk.
Because of the coaching that Nick Nurse gives. He accomplished a lot with a little. We like to equate Nick Nurse and his time in the NBA simply with the championship run on the back of Kawhi Leonard a lot of times, but that's not the case. Like, he's had success with worse teams. He's only had, and then the second thing is when you do think about Kawhi Leonard, Nick Nurse has had one season with a superstar in the NBA. One season as head coach, and he won it all. I saw someone else say it. They were like, he's 100% efficient with one superstar on his team, and he won the title. And then, thirdly, I again, this is dating way back to the bubble, but we're not looking for a regular season coach. We're not looking for a 1 seed or a 3 seed or whatever it's going to be for the Sixers, because we've been there, done that. We've had it all. We've been a 1, we've been a 2, we've been a 3, we've been a 4. Like, it hasn't worked, quite frankly. And we need a coach that makes adjustments. We need and adjustments rear their head or don't rear their head in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I noticed. And the reason I mentioned the bubble is because I was looking just in research on Nick Nurse, and I think I stumbled upon Toronto Raptors fans and their comments about his coaching. And they said in the bubble, if you go back and watch that series against the Celtics where they lost in 7, 4-3, they said it was just an awesome, chess match between Brad Stevens and Nick Nurse. And to me, in a series where you lose, that says a lot if Raptors fans are willing to say that Nick Nurse really, really did well, even though we lost the series. So I found that interesting, and that's something to look forward to in the playoffs, because obviously he's had success. He's unlike Rivers, he's won a championship recently. Rivers didn't win a championship in the modern NBA. That was a long time ago now, right? So that's my big things right there.
That's such a great point. I really love how you put that. The Sixers don't need a good coach. They don't need a great coach. They don't even need a great coach. They need a championship level coach.
Yeah.
Doc Rivers is not that, as we've seen.
He's not.
And like you just said, Nick Nurse has won a championship in the past 4 years, 5 years.
Right.
I don't know. I can't do math, but he knows. He understands. It's not like we're talking somebody who's been held in such high regard for the past 15 years because of something he did 16, 17 years ago.
Right.
Nick Nurse is, I think, the absolute perfect signing from the head coaching spot for the Sixers.
Right. And one last thing on Rivers, and maybe we'll shut the book on him. But
that's
so, obviously the Sixers over the last several years, even before Rivers came in, they have their name attached to, not being able to get out of the second round. Obviously, it's happened year after year.
Sixers and not getting out of the second round are synonymous at this point.
Right. And the reason that's a bad, when you add Rivers to that, that's a terrible recipe because, outside of his one title, even before he got here, he had blown the most 3-1 leads in the playoffs in the history of the league. He had a bad rap already outside of a title in the playoffs. Not a good reputation to have. And then you blend that with the Sixers, who don't have a good reputation in the playoffs, and that's increased since he got here. And so it's just proven to be true. And now you're adding a guy who has a good rep. he's one of the last few coaches to win a title. He's had some good teams with no all-stars or one all-star, and so it's just encouraging. Again, outside of the one season, 48-34, 41-41 this year. I don't know their whole story this year. Maybe some injuries, and again, they have a couple names, but they almost made the playoffs with that, and so. And then so the team defensive efficiency. I looked at defense and offensive efficiency since Nurse took over for the Raptors. The year they won the title, they were 4th in defensive efficiency. The year he won Coach of the Year, they were 2nd. And in the last 3 years, they've been 11th. So, obviously near the top 10, if not in the top 4, defensive efficiency. And then middle of the pack on offense, 15, 16, 17, 13, and 7 the year they won the title. So, whatever you do with that, I just felt like I would share that. But so what do you think this means for the current Sixers as they sit? Is there anyone where you're like, okay, Nurse is here, that means so-and-so is gone, or that means so-and-so is coming in? We don't know what Nick Nurse is going to do with the assistant coaches on the staff, obviously, but what's some of your thoughts as to what this might mean for the other guys that were in Sixers colors on the bench or on the floor this past season?
Honestly, I don't think it really means anything. I don't really know that Nick Nurse coming here means anything for the future of the current members of the roster, the current players on this roster. I'd like to think that everyone that we think is staying. And if there's any questionable ones, yeah, they're questionable for a reason. Now, what I'd also like to think, and this is just totally delusional on my end, so before you listen to this, make sure you understand that this is pure delusion.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for Nick Nurse to bring OG Anunoby with him from the Raptors, because OG Anunoby, not only is he one of my favorite role players in the entire league, but he is exactly what the Sixers need on this team. He is the absolute perfect player to have on this team, a player that the Sixers do not have right now. Like a very rare archetype 3-and-D wing player who can put the ball on the floor and create a little bit for himself. They don't have that right now. And most teams don't have that. That's why teams were offering 2-3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby over the trade deadline and in the offseason, because that kind of player is so valuable. Most teams don't have that. The Sixers don't. I'd love to see that, but like I said, probably not going to happen. The Sixers don't have a lot to trade, and we talked a little bit about that last week. But
yeah.
Again, pure delusion on my end. You can do with this soundbite, whatever, this 2 minutes, what you will. Just putting it out there in case it does happen.
Yeah, do with it what you will. Fred VanVleet also tweeted.
Okay. Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, when the official signing happened, just in a positive way toward Nick Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So that got some Sixers fans fired up, I think, too. I think Gary Trent's a free agent.
That's another one, but he's going to want big money. That's another player I'd love to see.
Yeah, that's probably an issue, right? Yeah,
the
money's an issue. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I agree. I don't know that there's, just because Nurse comes in that there's some automatic changes that come to mind. There still could be some changes that come to mind, but those would have been the ones that, might have came to mind before today anyway. So, with that being said, I'm excited, and I think Nick Nurse is probably very excited because it's just a fresh start for him.
Yeah.
He spent a long time.
For all parties involved.
That's a long time in Toronto, not just, again, as a head coach, but he was there for 10 years. In NBA time, that's like 40. Like, the way coaches just turn over in today's league is insane. And so, he comes to a new team, a new city, a superstar player, an MVP in Joel Embiid now. I also saw that I think this is the first time the reigning MVP is going to have a new coach since Magic Johnson.
Wow.
Which is a long time ago.
That's at least 90 years. I'm just kidding. At least 40 years ago.
Right. That's a long time. So, Interesting piece there. I don't know if there was truth to that, but
Yeah.
I guess there is. I didn't fact check it, but
Yeah.
it's a fresh start, and it's a promising roster. There's also word around the league that Nick Nurse chose Philly over Phoenix. That was the other
I did
team
see that too.
associated with him. We
Interesting.
mentioned. I don't know if it's like Nick, like here's literally 2 job offers. Which one are you taking? Like I don't know how much it's involved financially or like what. But if he really did choose us over them, then that's pretty encouraging as well. So a lot to like. We talked about it last week, and we said this is the one we want. And we got him.
Yes.
Outside of anything we've already said, you're happy about it. You're really happy about it, and even you said we're going to title this episode "Is This the Perfect Match?" What would make you say that this is, just from what he brings to the table and what the Sixers currently have, and obviously perfect match meaning okay, the Sixers are going to get over the hump, and they're gonna make some noise. Well, we hope that they will.
I hope so.
That they will. What makes you hopeful with this hire?
Well, I think
other than what we've already said.
Yeah, I was going to say, for all the reasons we said, plus kind of like what we just mentioned, it seems like he chose the Sixers over the Suns, which is huge. Apparently, he wanted to coach Joel Embiid. He wanted to coach the MVP. And you have it in the notes here, apparently he met with Joel Embiid during the interview process, which is also pretty huge. Mm-hmm. I just think, and I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier in the episode, the Sixers need an actual coach. They need a guy who's going to make adjustments. They need a guy who is going to want to coach players instead of just letting them do their own thing. The Sixers need a guy who actually runs plays for the team on offense and defense. And since Nick Nurse is pretty clearly a defensive-minded coach, I think the Sixers' defense could end up looking really good this next year. Now, they were okay this year. They had their ups and downs for sure. I mean, the entire team had its ups and downs, not just the defense. But their defense, I think, could look a lot different next year. I think maybe we could see a really juiced up version of Joel Embiid defensively just because of the way Nick Nurse operates. I'd love to see that because I personally think Joel Embiid is one of the best defensive players in the entire league. Yeah. And I don't think he's had a real chance to prove that because of how much he's had to score the ball and do things for this team offensively. I'd love to see a Joel Embiid anchored elite 76ers defense. Something that, I mean, from what I really remember over past years, the Sixers haven't ever really been truly elite defensively. Now, they don't exactly have the perfect personnel to be an amazing defensive team, but I think if Joel Embiid is truly locked in defensively, I think they can be really good. I think they can be one of the better defensive teams in the entire league consistently. I think Nick Nurse helps with that too. And I just think Embiid needs not somebody to tell him what to do, but somebody to coach him. I just think he needs coaching, and I'm not saying that as a slight to him. I just think he needs a little something else extra when it comes to playoff time, because he said he wants to win. He's said he wants to win a championship. Something is missing. I don't know what it is, but I think Nick Nurse can help. It's kind of a blind. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's kind of a guess, but I think something is missing there, and I think Nick Nurse can help with that. So I'm really looking forward to this, as you could probably tell by that, however long I just spoke for 5 minutes straight.
Yeah, it's exciting. It is. We said before we went on, that the Sixers got a win today, and America won with the Celtics lost today.
America, when the Celtics lose, America wins. That's it.
And the Miami Heat are going to the NBA Finals as an 8 seed.
Second time in 4 years.
Second time in 4 years. Jimmy Butler and company with all their undrafted players. Pretty incredible. Which made me think, and I've always gone back and forth on coaching and how important coaching is, and like how important just the roster is, and getting the right pieces and having the talent, and a lot of times I side with that, but then I'm like, I look at Miami and what they did to Boston, the deepest team in the NBA. They were up 3-0, but then they ended up finishing it in 7. Like, how good is Eric Spoelstra? Because they scored like 60 points. Undrafted players scored
Caleb
60
Martin
points
had
for the
30.
Miami Heat in a Game 7. Caleb Martin had 30.
He was one vote away from winning conference MVP.
Was he?
Conference Finals MVP, yeah.
I knew it had to be close. So it's just like, obviously coaching does something, because that's incredible, the run that they went on. And
yeah, when you have a really great coach, there's a difference between the really great coaches and just the good coaches. There's a really big gap, and I think you just mentioned it. You see that with Eric Spoelstra. You see that with Nick Nurse, too.
I'm really hoping we're going to witness that for our very own eyes, that's going to happen with Nick Nurse on the Sixers, because, again, it just, the hope obviously is that this opens up a whole new level that the Sixers can get to.
Yeah.
Because hopefully there is that big of a difference between Nurse and Rivers at the head coaching spot for the Sixers. So, a lot of praise for Nick Nurse, and we'll see what he can do for this team. What's your thoughts, quickly, like we said we were going to get into, but what's your thoughts on the latest on James Harden? And, obviously it didn't say that that James Harden met with Nick Nurse. It said Joel Embiid met with them, because, James is with all his plans and not opting in for the next year on his contract. But what's the latest you've heard there, and positive, negative, indifferent toward Nick Nurse and the impact that could have?
Yeah, I haven't heard much. I'd like to think the Sixers getting Nick Nurse maybe entices Harden to take less money, because Harden knows that Nick Nurse is a better coach than Doc Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts are still pretty similar to what they were last week. James Harden apparently wants $50 million a year for 4 years. Sixers should not do that. That's too much money. I do understand, though, that if they don't re-sign him, they don't really have a whole lot to do, because they're not going to have a lot of cap space. I think even if he leaves, they're only going to end up having a few million in cap space, which could work, could help, could not help. We'll have to see. But I don't know. I think things have been pretty much the same on that front. I think I'd like to think that Nick Nurse maybe helps James Harden. Okay, I'll come back for less because we got a coaching change. He's a good coach. I like him. I don't know. I'm not James Harden. I'm just guessing.
Right. Yeah, and you like to think that, and based on rumors, of course, what's gone on for the last couple weeks, and even Glenn, being kicked out the door.
Yeah.
It seems as if, or it's likely, that the Sixers are still trying to retain Harden. Doc said, or Daryl Morey said that, plan A is to keep Harden here.
Right.
Not by any means. Like, obviously there's a limit, and you've addressed that there is a limit as far as money that we want to give to him.
There should be.
There should be. And so it seems like, we don't know what's happened behind closed doors. Maybe James with Daryl has said, okay, if you go get Nick Nurse, then we'll talk. Like, then we'll have a real conversation, and then I'll consider. Like, I don't know what's going on. There was also a rumor that this whole thing that came out about James wanting to go to Houston so bad and wanting all this money is just kind of a play to get more from the Sixers. Don't know how true that is. Don't know how he just whenever he signed the contract, he took less to build for this team. I don't know that a lot has changed since then, because again, it's still a possibility that they can make some noise with him on the team. And then there's the whole other side of people that are opposite you, who are saying that because we're so limited in what we can do without him, we have to get him by any means. I'm not there.
No.
I'm more siding with you as far as what we want to give him, but there are certainly people there. I don't know where Daryl is in that whole conversation, but it seems as if you'd like to you'd like to think that the Sixers are doing what they can to keep him at a reasonable price, and we'll just have to see how it unfolds. But again, if the rumor's true that he didn't want Glenn there, that's probably a fact.
That's a plus, yeah.
Right, and then you get Nurse in, who has some good reputation, good stock in the league, then it might be a really good thing. So as far as the Sixers' chances to keep James Harden. So anything else on that front there, or any other nuggets on the Sixers' new head coach, Nick Nurse?
Yeah, that's it. All good. I who knows, maybe it's kind of a double thing. Maybe it's getting rid of Glenn and hiring Nick Nurse. So you're getting rid of Glenn, which is what Harden wanted, but then you're getting times 10 to replace him. So I don't know. Who knows? It's gonna have to be. We're just gonna have to wait and see. I hate to do that. Obviously, we're a podcast. We like to talk about that kind of thing and speculate. But at the end of the day, we don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see. This applies to every Sixers fan, not just us here on Planet 76. But until it happens, we don't know. When it does happen, it'll be easier to come to conclusions.
Sure. Yeah, and I think with James Harden and his camp of people surrounding him, supporting him, I think that this hire certainly raises some eyebrows, because it's like he chose them over the Phoenix Suns. Like that's circling around the league too, and Harden knows that, and he did that for a reason. And I don't know. Well, how's it all work? Because he's not free agency doesn't start for a while now.
Right.
Like, obviously, it's okay for Nick Nurse to contact James Harden, right? Like that's okay. He's on the team right now, right? Like I don't know if that's going on, but. So obviously Joel can be in contact with him, so we don't know what's happening. It would be very interesting. We've touched on, we don't see any drastic changes needing to happen. It would be interesting to see the same core of 9-10 run it back with a new head coach and some fresh wind at their sails to see what they can do. Positive episode here on episode 98. Sixers with a win and Celtics with a loss. So we'll see you next time on Planet 76. Be sure to follow us on all the platforms, Spotify, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Planet 76 Podcast. We post some stuff over there, let you know when new episodes are coming out, give our thoughts on certain things, like those Boston Celtics tonight, just saying. All right, that's it. I'm getting myself in trouble. We'll see you next time on Planet 76. You are a Philadelphia 76ers fan, this is the podcast for you. Planet 76, a weekly podcast covering all things Philadelphia 76ers. We'll see you next time.